Senator Rick Santorum helped save our daughter's life. That's the story of the Smith family. And on the next Janet Mefferd show, they'll tell their story of how Rick Santorum's experiences with his own disabled daughter helped save theirs. And how is the Obama administration wasting your taxpayer money on his education policies? Lance Azumi will be with me to talk about his new book. It's called Obama's Education Takeover. That and a lot more. Join us for the next Janet Mefferd show. The Janet Mefferd Show, 4 to 6 p.m. on Faith Talk, 1500.
At janetmefferd.com. Once again, here is Janet Mefferd.
Well, we all remember hearing that tragic news back in January that Senator Rick Santorum had to rush home from the campaign trail because his little girl was in the hospital. This is his youngest little girl, Bella. She has a condition called Trisomy 18, a genetic disorder, and she was released from the hospital shortly thereafter, thankfully. But one story you may not have heard is the one in which Rick Santorum helped save the life of another little girl with Trisomy 18. Her name is Faith, and her mom, Jesi Smith, joins us now to tell her incredible story as she says how Rick Santorum saved our daughter's life. Jesi, great to have you here.
It's an honor to speak with you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, tell me about your little girl, Faith.
Well, Faith is the youngest of our 5 kids, and she is aptly named. We knew there was some soft signs on our ultrasound that something was going on. We even had a genetic appointment, and he pretty much said it was trisomy 18 or something like that. In fact, within a half hour, he very strongly told us to get an abortion, which we just said that's not an option. I mean, by the time we left, my husband was ready to jump out of the chair. It was a good thing that appointment ended. But anyway, it just wasn't an option. I mean, you're talking about my daughter here. So when we had her, obviously there was just something wrong. The genetic testing doesn't always come back right away. But trisomy 18 is just 3 copies of a chromosome, and it's actually the number 18th chromosome. So people normally know 21, which is Down syndrome. Well, 18th is the second most common. However, when you look it up, it says Edwards syndrome, and then it also says incompatible with life. Mm-hmm. And so, that we knew for sure Faith was her name because she has increased our faith, and she's been a joy to our family.
Aww.
But Rick Santorum is actually the first parent we met that also had a trisomy 18 child. So back in April of 2010, we went to this, I think it was like a Reagan memorial dinner, and we go and he's the speaker, and Brad had somehow contacted, Brad is my husband, and he somehow contacted them to let him know we also have a child that has trisomy 18. So we almost ruined the dinner because he spent so much time with us, asked to hold my daughter. We didn't know if we were going to get her back. I mean, he's taking pictures. He's saying, I want this one sent to my wife. And then, we're talking about problems we're having with her, that all these trisomy 18 parents have. You kind of feel like you're in the trenches. I don't know. I've never been in the military, but I always assumed that when you're in the trench fighting for your kid, and you're encountering this battle, you feel like this camaraderie with other people that are going through that same thing. And so I think we felt that, and he did too, just, being able to talk to another parent, hey, your kid's living, thank God, what are you doing? And so he spent a large part of that time with us. I think it made the organizer just sweat because he's supposed to, we're not the big donors here. So, but he gave me, and I didn't notice, think this much of it until I found out he was running for president. But he left me with his BlackBerry, had me call his wife. So he's given a speech, and I'm on the phone with his wife finding out about feeding pumps and what they're using. And now that I know, he must have known back then, but what presidential candidate do you know that, hands somebody their phone and walks away?
Oh, he's a great guy.
Oh, well, we are just so thankful. I mean, the thing that you realize as you're talking to a parent like him is the comfort and advice he gave us cost him a lot. That does not come as an easy thing to give. It's because they walk through something hard themselves.
Yeah.
But anyway, so come September, we had seen him, we met him, we take this picture. Come September of the same year, 2010, Faith is getting sick. We're immediately to the hospital. Second time, Brad works for Salem Communications in Detroit, and it happened to be that Senator Santorum was filling in for Bill Bennett at the time.
It's our company.
Right, yes, exactly.
Yes.
So Brad grabs him, and he said he looked like he was beelining it out of there. So my husband, Brad, grabs him, and he's telling him, we are just on a path, and we can't seem to get her well. and we were frightened at the time. Well, Senator Santorum starts giving him some advice, and my husband is kind of going, yeah, well, kind of hem and hawing. The doctors aren't saying that same thing. Maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. And, Senator Santorum grabs him, really got my husband's attention and said, you're going to lose her. You're going to lose her if you don't listen. And so Chris, my husband's boss, went and wrote it down himself, was like writing down everything that Senator Santorum, and Brad comes to the hospital, and we start talking to the hospital and the doctors about this stuff, and they're like, nobody does this. Nobody does this. And so we ended up, the advice he gave us, we ended up changing doctors and hospitals and kept her because of that. We would have lost her because she needed a BiPAP. What we didn't realize is most of these kids with Trisomy 18 have such recessed jaws that they have to have BiPAPs or some type of surgery.
Jesi, hang on just a moment. We need to go to a break. Jesi Smith is with us, and she's sharing this incredible story about Rick Santorum and how he helped her family help her little girl. Just like Bella, Rick Santorum's daughter, Faith, her daughter, has Trisomy 18. We'll be back right after this. Forty-four past the hour on the Janet Mefferd Show, and it's so incredible when you hear about the untrumpeted things that are good that are done by public figures. And in this case, we're talking about Senator Rick Santorum. He rushed home, as you know, several weeks back to be with his little girl, Bella. She has a condition called Trisomy 18. And it's interesting to note that he has been helping people behind the scenes. In the case of Jesi Smith and her husband, Brad, they've been really helped by Rick Santorum and his advice that has been given to the Smith family. Jesi, we were talking before the break about how Rick Santorum had kind of taken your husband aside when he was at that radio station up in Detroit,
right,
and said, you need to do this. Now, let me just ask you, because a lot of us don't really understand a whole lot of details about Trisomy 18, but what sorts of physical problems does Faith have related to this condition? And especially, what was she struggling with that needed Rick Santorum's advice?
Well, I think most of them struggle with holes in the heart. Holes in the heart, they have huge feeding issues. Some of them, they'll have odd things, extra organs, no organs, some that, I've talked to some parents where really they didn't even see their child because it was such a hard thing to see. So, the ones that live are they're rare and just a gift from God. And so when Rick Santorum, what we were dealing with was a recessed jaw, so much, and as she grew, I think it just got progressively worse. We didn't even know what to ask for. I mean, if you're down this road and there's not many studies, not many kids live, you don't even know what to ask for, and frankly, neither do the doctors.
Right.
And so when Rick Santorum, they had been through this with Bella, they had either a CPAP or a BiPAP, and he said, I know exactly what you need, because this was going to be, the last time we had taken her into the hospital, she was gray. I went in and looked at her, and she was kind of going up and down, but she was gray and almost lifeless. And thank God it happened to be a voting day. My husband was, less than 2 minutes away. He comes back, and it's just, it was crazy, though. She had just so much CO2, so we didn't realize it was that jaw. Well, a BiPAP just forces the air in and out for you, so it doesn't allow you to do that. But that put us on the road where it saved her life. We never have had another episode like that where she just couldn't breathe. And, if you can't breathe, evidently you can't get over a cold or, do well at all or grow. So he told us exactly what to ask for, and we ended up going to the University of Michigan Hospital in Ann Arbor. It's about an hour away from where we live. And they were wonderful. They were, as soon as we said that stuff, they said, of course, let's try this. Now, I don't know how all parents experience this, but we've had people that have wanted to send us to an ethics sport just to get life-saving stuff for our kids. So those who say there's no death panels anymore, let me assure you, people are very subjectively saying who lives and dies sometimes with treatments.
Boy.
And so to get somebody who's, to be able to say, hey, and we name drop shamelessly, hey, Senator Rick Santorum, this is what his daughter's doing, and it's saving her life.
Good.
Then we were able to go and get wonderful help, and we ended up getting a jaw distraction for her as well, and we heard her make new sounds she had never made, try to sit up. She had never done that.
How old is Faith right now?
She is 3.
Aw.
And she is a doll.
Well, you know what, Faith, I'll tell Jesse, it's so amazing when you're telling your story, and this is such an amazing story. I'm relating on a very smaller level, I should say, because I have a son with a physical disability. And when you talk about getting help from other parents and having frustrations with doctors, I am so relating to that. And it has been the case with my son's case. His arm was paralyzed through a terrible situation, his birth. And it was the parents. It was the parents who came along who had children who had the same condition, who were of most help to me and pointed me in the right direction. And that's what stands out to me is he's famous and he's a senator and he could be president one day. But above all, he comes across on the presidential trail as I'm a dad. I'm a dad first and foremost. And you're just proving that with your story.
Right. And just so your listeners know, we're telling this story. I mean, if anything, I'm using him because I want to tell about the goodness of God, and I want to tell raise people awareness that these kids can live if you just do what they need, and also to say, hey, we are thankful to this man, and I was shocked, the year later when I found out he was running for president, because I just couldn't believe he gave me his phone. I mean, I've been with candidates before. They protect that kind of stuff. That's personal stuff.
Well, have you been in contact with him of late? I mean, this happened a while back, but have you talked to him regularly?
Well, I read a story in the local news here, and I contacted them and said, hey, I've got a great story. And so what they did is Kathleen Gray for the Free Press, which is our liberal paper here in Detroit, she wrote an article, and then the man, Eric Seals, that did the photography, boy, they made us look good. They made us look like good parents, and they got great pictures of, Senator Santorum holding my daughter, and really just... It was a heartwarming story, obviously for us, who's, our moms bought out probably the entire publication for that day, but also, it just gives hope. We've had people from Canada and Ohio and Detroit calling us and saying, where do I go? I've got this child, and they're giving me no hope. So what he did for us, we're hoping to pass on, because he stopped. He took time. I mean, we are not the big donors. He didn't make any money from us. He didn't ask us. We are the ones who, in fact, when we were at an event, we handed him the paper. We did it after the fact. We did the story, and we thought, well, if it's good, we'll hand it on, over to him. And even in Lima, Ohio, my husband's from there, and he stopped in there, and here's my mother-in-law. She prints out a picture of Faith, and she's running in and yelling, Senator Santorum, and Karen as they're walking by. Well, they take the picture, and I guess Karen Santorum said, oh, this is the Faith we've been praying for, and lets her kids see it.
Aww.
So, I mean, this is a family. They're obviously living what they're saying here. And, we've seen their genuine acts of kindness when no one else is looking. And so, I would definitely say we've used them, but it is just to say it is, it's a joy when you find yourself hedged in by these trials.
Oh, absolutely.
You're assured
absolutely.
that this testing of your faith is going to, lead to that endurance. That helps your kids, but just leads people to God.
Well,
because that's what sickness does for us parents. It puts us on our knees.
Yes, absolutely. And it's and obviously the Lord put the right person in your life at the right time. He just happened to be somebody very famous and somebody who was going through the same thing. But it shows that there's really no difference between famous people and people who aren't famous. We can all share the same sorts of trials and tribulations. And Jesi, I know you and Brad are great parents to Faith, and we'll keep her in our prayers as well as your whole family. It's a great story.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Jesi. It was wonderful to talk to you. What a great mom. We're going to come back on the Janet Mefferd Show. Stay with us.